Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you in another video. All right, so NBA talk. Yesterday was the first round of the draft. Second round is in like an hour and a half, and I got the bright idea that I was gonna come out and go grocery shopping and lock myself out of the room. So yeah, they figured they would take care of it while I'm out here and about, and by the time I get back, I'm sure the door will be open for me. That's the beauty of living in a space like this. But yeah, man, this is one of those situations where looking at the NBA draft yesterday, I guess I can update some of my thoughts after listening to so much commentary. I became much more aware of what it was that the New Orleans Pelicans did in regards to acquiring Derek Queen. There's a unprotected pick that they were able to send out to, I believe it was Atlanta, that attached the better of two picks between the New Orleans Pelicans and the Milwaukee Bucks. And so the Pelicans could potentially be a bad team this next year. All things considered, they have a pretty talented team, but betting on yourself to that degree is kind of dangerous when you are not that great of a team. And then the Milwaukee Bucks, they don't have Dame, but you don't expect that they're not going to have Giannis. So in the idea that they don't have Giannis, maybe they're not a better team than the Pelicans, but in the easy East, you have to assume the Bucks are going to be the better team, which make the pick better for New Orleans, which would then make the pick transfer to whoever they traded it to. So the likelihood that that's going to be an unprotected pick attached to a bad New Orleans team is pretty damn high, especially when you consider the Derek Queen is another player that needs a ball in his hands, who likely doesn't stretch the floor. You already got Zion, you already got Yves Messi, he can't shoot, so you're putting together something that probably doesn't seamlessly fit in a Western Conference that's fighting tooth and nail up and down the whole thing. Chances of you making the playoffs and that not being a lottery pick that transfers to Atlanta is not very good. So it becomes a very bad trade to get Derek Queen. So I like the idea of them getting Derek Queen, but I always have to leave the caveat out there to say it depends on what they traded. And now that I know what they traded, no, that was a terrible trade. So I need to update that opinion. Acquiring Derek Queen, the player, as a rookie, I like that for the Pelicans. What they gave up was absolutely insane. And I just wasn't clear on that when I was referring to that move. So that needs to be said, man. And I know better, but I just thought that they had given away a regular pick. You know, I figured, hey, they didn't give up probably too much about future, right? Well, yeah, it was a future, but unfortunately, it was a very good one. One that projects to be extremely good. So, yeah, that was stupid. That was stupid. New Orleans should not have done that. So yeah, and also I somehow managed to just mess up the Walter Clayton Jr. pick entirely. The first time I mentioned it in the video where I was reflecting on the draft, I said that he had went to the Washington Wizards. He actually went to the Utah Jazz. Then when it was time, I was running down all the draft picks, I just skipped over his pick. Like I said 17 and I went straight to 19. He was drafted 18 in a traded pick from the Utah Jazz, from the Washington Wizards to the Utah Jazz. And so I didn't commentate on that at all, basically in a real way. I said that he was a bad fit for Washington, for which he's not going to. So yeah, that was a major error in my video. But the truth is I don't really have that high of a grade on Walter. I was aware that he's a nice knockdown shooter. So I think he can be a helpful piece to the Utah Jazz in their mountain of guards that they got. He's one more that can hit a shot. A nice replacement if they actually shave off some of these guards for a damn change. Maybe he can see some minutes on the floor, and if he does, I think he can do some good things scoring the ball. But I think other people are much higher on him than I am, because I'm not the big believer in the scoring prototype, non-defensive, non-playmaking shooter that's only like 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", whatever his height, maybe like 6'3". I'm just not big on that prototype. I think a lot of people have this idea that Josh Hart is about to be reincarnated in a lot of these dudes. And I just, I don't necessarily think you're going to find that energy in a lot of these players that Josh Hart is being compared to. I don't know that people compared Walter to Josh very much, but the 6'3" guy that can play bigger, Walter's definitely a better shooter. But I just leave stuff like that. For me, I leave players like that to the second round. You're a small guy, so outright you're going to be targeted defensively. You're not particularly physical from what I understand, so it's just a prototype. He may very well be a dog. From what I understand, he is a dog, maybe an efficient shooting dog too, but he's a small guy. So I'm hunting you. If I'm going up against you and you're killing me on the defensive end, I'm putting somebody bigger on you. I'm hunting out the mismatch, and I'm just shooting over you until your coach takes you off the floor. That's like, and so for me, automatically them dudes, no matter how good people think they are, they fall in the second round in this draft for me. And so I had a second round grade on Walter Clayton. He went 18, traded to a logjam Utah situation. I didn't think nothing of it. I didn't think nothing of it, and I guess subconsciously that's why I overlooked it. Maybe he proves himself to be some version of Jalen Brunson or something. Maybe he proved himself to be some awesome Jamal Crawford-like scorer. I don't know, like, it's possible, but for me, guys like that just are not getting drafted in this particular draft with so many long-armed dudes and centers. You see some of the stuff that went to the second round, it's like, man, I don't value shot making like everybody else does. I just don't. Maybe I should. When I hear people say this is the best player in the world, first thing they talk about is a damn jump shot. Oh, his jumper is so smooth. Like that's not the attribute that catches my attention when I'm considering who's the best of what. It just don't. That's why I'm not that high on some of these players that a lot of people like a lot. Give me just a second, we'll continue talking about it. It's why I was low on Trey Johnson. Lower than most on Trey Johnson. Because Trey Johnson is not a very athletic, drive in the paint, layup kind of efficient guy, but he does hit a lot of mid-range jumpers, Jamal Crawford stuff, Lou Williams type stuff. I just think a lot of players, most players who have that archetype, if they're not lockdown defenders or excellent playmakers or some version of being average in those areas while having these massive strengths in shooting the ball, I think they're role players. I look at them as the two guards that don't necessarily play the one, but are too short to actually guard twos. You know, I just don't like the archetype. I really don't like the archetype. I know a lot of people are down on a different archetype that's like the 6'8" heavy forward. They call them tweeners. They're too big to guard small forwards, but too small to necessarily guard any fives. And maybe they don't necessarily stretch the floor as fours. Like, that's like the most undesirable archetype in a lot of common circles. Me, I'd rather have that dude than the Walter Clayton archetype. I just would. I'm different like that. For my style of basketball, I just have a terrible idea about what happens when dudes that are tiny, who can't defend and don't make other people better, are on the floor. I tell you this, I would be so much lower on Ace Bailey if he was so much shorter. And obviously everybody would, but I think specifically for his strengths and weaknesses, because he don't play make, because he's a shooter all the damn time. If he were like 6'3" or 6'4", I'd be like, man, send him to the second round. It's because he's 6'10" that makes it so that those weaknesses that he has can be made up in the switchability on the defensive end and the athleticism and the ability for him to get, with his length, to stumble into steals and stuff like that. I can live with him because where he hurts me in one area, I think he can help me in others. But the Walter Clayton archetype, 6'3", I shoot a lot, I hit a lot of shots, but I don't really make anybody else better. And I'm not a great defender. That archetype just don't do nothing for me, man. I just think that's not. I don't have an eye for that type of piece. It could be the highest version of that, and I'm still looking at it like, like it's like Jamal Murray to me. I like Jamal Murray. I think Jamal Murray's a killer, and Jamal Murray's a better connective piece than most. Can't defend, but like that's the highest version of that I can think of, man. And for me, that's like, I'm gonna take Paolo over that every time. I'm gonna take Franz Wagner over that every time. You see what I'm saying? So I just don't have what's the word? I don't have an imagination for that piece. I think that piece, no matter how well he's playing in a lot of cases, it's going to be hunted on the defensive end. And he's not making anybody better, so I'm beholden to him hitting shots or missing them, and he's still going to be volume shooting all the time. So if he goes cold, now he's deficient on both sides. It's just I don't like the archetype. I don't like the archetype. I think it leans into worse basketball being played more than better basketball being played with those type of archetypes. And so while everybody's super in love with these type of players, I look at him and I say, man, I could leave him on the board. I'd rather take a chance on somebody that may be a project, but has more tools, more likely to stumble into rebounds, more likely to stumble into, block shots and all different types of stuff like that. I like that player better. And so that's just me, man. That's how I prefer it. I don't really think too much of really trying to focus on shot making unless I don't have nothing left. Like for me, the way Orlando is building is the way I probably would have built, to where shooting and scoring is the last thing I need to look for. And as we can clearly see, they've been able to address that. They got Richardson, they were able to pick up Bane. They got all the defense, they got all the toolsy guys, they got the long people, they got the guys that can rebound, they got even playmakers who have defensive ability like Anthony Black. They got everything. All they need is shooters. And you see how easy it is for them to fill that in? Now, if you fill up your roster with guys who don't do nothing but shooting and then try to fill in all the other stuff afterward, I guarantee you're going to come up short. I guarantee you. Because you're more likely to find toolsy guys that can't shoot in this era. And because of it, the last thing for me to do, actually, I just killed my whole argument by saying that. But you're able to find more of that stuff in the draft, and you're more able to find some of those other little shooters getting waived in free agency and stuff like that. I can get a Alec Burks to hit some damn shots. I can find, you know what I mean? Like those pieces are easy to find, bro. I think that's how I look at a lot of these dudes that they love so much. It's like, okay, you give me Alec Burks. You give me Alec Burks. Alec Burks is nice, scorer, can't defend, not particularly making anybody else better. Can't, he's a shorter guy, kind of plays the one, but not really a one. More like a two, but can't really guard twos. Definitely can't guard threes. It's like, all right, I get it. That's a nice piece, but I'm not taking him 6 overall and leaving the 7'2" guy with the long arms on the board. I'm not leaving the 6'10" wing that's fast as a one guard with long arms on the board just because he can't shoot. Now I'm just leaving him on the board and taking some other guy that's 6'3". I just don't think that way. And I think a lot of people who assess this game, they do. And they end up bringing you a bunch of dudes that can shoot, but they're not making anybody else better. They're not defending anything. And so it's just like, what? I'm not really playing basketball. It's me ball now. And I'm waiting on hot hands to stay hot. And hot hands run cold. You know what I mean? Especially going up against elite defenses like the Rockets and like OKC. I'm not beating those teams with just a bunch of shot makers. No. So that's really what I'm trying to say. I like the idea of shot makers, but in the quest of learning the game the way that I have, I've seen one too many games where you have a bunch of them dudes and you kind of find yourself in a space where there's not a whole lot of basketball being played. It's me ball. My turn, your turn. I'm running down. I'm taking the shot. If it goes in, we're cool. If it doesn't go in, I'm cold. I'm coming back down. Maybe I play a little defense, but I'm probably getting cooked any damn way. And then you see the teams that are really good. They're making all types of passes behind the back, super pass to the left, to the right, squeeze the pass into the tight window, easy bucket, back cut. Like, yo, if you don't have a passer, or if you don't have a set of guys who have good court vision and accurate passing, you ain't going to be playing basketball. You're going to be doing something, but it ain't going to be basketball. And so that's why I wasn't so mad at what the Nets did, even though I think the Nets, they were misguided. They were really misguided. I was disappointed in the Nets in the sense that for what they drafted last night, when you look at them in the war room, you would have swore to God they were drafting like just the best players. You would have thought they got Cooper Flagg or Dylan Harper or something, the way they were slapping hands and high-fiving. Like, the problem that I have with them is like they didn't appear to be cognizant that what they were doing was high risk and maybe shouldn't have been celebrated like that. And that is a sign that somebody may not know what the hell they're doing. And when they think they got something really, really good, but everybody's telling them it's really, really bad, and they're really, really excited, like there should be some tempered sense to their expressions when they're making certain decisions. You didn't already drafted 2 guards, and you're about to bring in a 3rd guard, and you're super excited when you already got guards all up and down your lineup. It's like, even if you think these guys are going to work, what you're essentially saying is, I'm willing to punt some of these players. I'm not looking to see that all of them are going to meet their highest potential. I'm just hoping that if I throw a few picks out there, maybe 1 or 2 of them hit. That's the wrong way to go when you have so many lottery picks, when you have so many first rounders, man. You got to hit on all of them, or as I always say, defer them to the future to where you have more pick equity in your war chest. And so when teams like do stuff with the lottery that look crazy to me, like what the Nets did, sure, they may get 1 star or 1 nice or 2 nice starters, but they had 5 first-round picks for which to try. I'm not throwing darts at a wall with 5 first-round picks. I need to hit on all of them. And if I'm taking 3 guards, 3 or 4 players that play the same position, I'm already telling myself I'm not hitting on most of them. I'm just hoping 1 or 2. It's just awful, man. I personally been watching Sean Marks for a little while, and I know ownership's a little wacky there. Joe Tsai is like different, you know what I mean? There's some things to say about Joe Tsai. I don't even go into this video, but he's a little different, you know what I mean? He runs his thing a certain way, and I think some of what we saw yesterday kind of spoke to his ideologies, his basketball philosophy, rather, his way of doing things. And I wonder how much of what we saw from the Nets was actually Sean Marks, and was it more about some of what they want to see in Brooklyn at the time when all of this is going on in New York with the Mario situation, all that, and all of a sudden now they found a way to get certain types of guys in Brooklyn. It's that kind of thing. And so for me, and I kind of felt the same way about the Portland pick when they picked Hansen Yan. When you hear people talk about the Hansen Yan pick, the first thing people are talking about is, oh, we got 1.8 billion people going to be following the Blazers right now. All right. If that's the goal, is to make yourself attractive to Chinese fans, then yeah, you've done it. But if the goal is to actually give this young player an opportunity to succeed, I'm not sure you have that. I don't think this is the environment that I can assume that Hansen Young is going to succeed. When I got 5 legitimate centers on the roster. You know, Duop Rafe is a guy that I think can play a lot. He can really play well in this league. I'm not saying he's a starter, but that's a good backup. Do you know he's been rendered to the 5th center on the roster over there in Portland? Duop Rafe is a guy I would love to have on the Lakers right now. He'd probably start for us. He's the 5th guy on the roster for their team at that position. It's like, yo, this is not a valuable position to begin with. This is a position where even when teams are a bit shallow with it, they still tend to pass on it because they don't want to miss out on the wing or the point guard or the shooters or whatever. This is the least most valuable position in basketball. And you have 5 of them? It's just this decision making, bro. And you look up and they say, well, we got a Chinese guy now. Like, cool, I'm happy you got a Chinese guy. But what the hell? Can you put him in a position to succeed? Or is he just going to be a guy on the back of the bench that they're never going to see? Portland is all over the place, man. And look, my whole idea that they need to go after Giannis needs to say, hell no, not after what I just saw them do in the draft. Decision making that they're making right now, that front office is making right now, Giannis, I changed my mind. Don't go there. Don't go there, bro. Nope, changed my mind. They were in a good space until they start showing us where their head is. And right now, where their head is nowhere near where Giannis needs to be. I'll tell you that. I'm back on board with staying away from Portland. I'm not going there. I'm not sending nobody there. Nobody there. Because they're doing things in a very, very, you could say unorthodox way, but I think it has a low ceiling on what it is they're trying to accomplish there. Low ceiling. Now, I've been trying to, over the last 15 hours or so, trying to psych myself into understanding something that maybe I don't work into the equation as much as I assess drafts. Maybe next year, I will be a bit more fluid as it pertains to this particular thing. We talked about this last night, too. I think that I tend to align logic with what do I have on my roster versus what it is that I'm getting in the draft. Drafting for fit. I kind of want to work myself into a space where I'm a bit more accepting of drafting guys into what I like to call a log jam, or drafting guys into situations that don't appear at that moment to look very good for them. Because I can fathom very clearly where I wish I would have drafted a certain position even though I already have a bunch of it. And that's really what it comes down to. I'm not staying put as it pertains to my logic in assessing these drafts. I'm really not. I'm going to evolve here when it comes to that. Because I very much understand what happened to Portland when Michael Jordan was on the board and they took Sam Bowie. You understand what I'm saying? I'm very aware of that type of thing. And it looked extremely logical for them to pass up on Michael Jordan. Right? Based on how I assess things. And I have this understanding, but I don't necessarily work it into how I assess what should be done. So I'll say this about what Portland did, and I'll say this about what the Nets did. Just like I said last night, if they can work into the equation, creating the opportunities for these players in a legitimate enough time span for which would make sense for when those players would be ready, then it's not a big deal that they drafted so much of the same. It's the same thing I say. I think it's the same way you assess what New Orleans is doing. Because a lot of times, and this is where I need to be stronger as well, a lot of times when you're assessing these young guys, they can't help you right away. I think a lot of times when I look at these attributes of these young players, that's not my strength, is identifying, okay, he's going to need 2 years and I need to allow for him to be able to wait 2 years. I usually think these guys should come out right away and get opportunities in most situations. And I just think that the ratio between where that should be in my head versus what's realistic needs to evolve. And I'm telling you that right now as I continue to grow in this game. That's where I need to evolve. Moving on from DeJounte Murray right away so that Jeremiah Fears can play in New Orleans may not necessarily be what's best for Fears if Fears ain't ready. And as we assess Fears, we say he needs to put on strength. How long is it going to take to put on strength? Maybe 2 or 3 years. So if I remove DeJounte Murray and throw him out there right now, he probably can't go. Some rookies can go, and to assess who can go and who can't, and to get that right is not easy. But the point is, I lean too far in one way or another, as opposed to having a balance when it comes to that. I'm going to get better there. So when I look at the Hansen Young situation, and I listened to their GM and he was talking about it, he seemed to feel confident that they would be able to make it so that Hansen Young was ever to be the player he's supposed to be. I don't see that being possible. As I assess the desire for balance in this regard, I say to you that as long as Donovan Clingan is on the roster, I never see Hansen Young becoming what it is they drafted him to be. When you take the 16 overall pick and you leave some of the talent that they had available to them on the board, I don't see the fruit in drafting a backup. Now, that's specific to them, because when it came to New Orleans, I thought New Orleans should have definitely taken Kama Malawach, knowing that Yves Messi and him were likely going to be playing interchangeably. It just seemed to make more sense based on what New Orleans has. that they take Malawatch, pair him with Yves Messi, and let them both play together 25 minutes a game or whatever it would be. But as it pertains to Portland, based on what they already had, assuming fit as a primary logic point of view, I just don't see where they're going to be able to make Han Young look like who they say they want him to become, which is the Chinese Jokic. If you have Kling in there, and he's on a fresh rookie contract from last year, Han Young is a glorified backup at best, even when you clear everything out that needs to be cleared out. Now, maybe you can tell me this upcoming year, neither one of them are ready. I agree. I don't know that Kling is ready to take on the big role. I don't think Han Young going to be ready anytime soon. Ayton probably should stay in place right now. Robert Williams only plays 30 games a season. He's not really in the way. Duop Race, you don't care about because he's a role player. You probably should move him because of it. But that's neither here nor there. I can move Duop Race. Now, all of a sudden, based on what it is I'm looking at, suddenly that can look a little more reasonable if I didn't reach for Han Young at 16. If I would have got him when he was supposed to be drafted in the second round, booyah. Got a little bit of a log jam, but I can clear that out. It's all about how you allocate your assets and respect value, man. It don't really have nothing to do with the fit in most cases as I assess things. The fit is not as important. It's making sure you don't do something stupid so that you're pulling away the value away from your asset class. That's all I'll be saying. You want Han Young? Thank you. You want Han Young, you could have Han Young, but take him when he's supposed to be taken. Trade down so that you can make it make sense. They call themselves trading down. These guys, hey, listen to their GM. He said, we didn't want to overreach for Han Young because we had 11, so we were going to trade down. We traded down to 16, and that was as comfortable as we were going to be. We didn't feel any more comfortable than letting him fall any further than 16. That tells me one or two things. Either they got some good intel that Han Young was also going to be reached on by somebody else, which is very well possible. If one person willing to do something stupid, maybe two are. Or they bought some bull crap feeding them information of that nature, which is what likely I think may have happened to them. And this is why you see teams throw out feelers prior to the draft saying that they're interested in certain players so they can trick people like Portland into doing stuff like this, which shakes up the draft not only for themselves but several other teams. When you reach for Han Young at 16, now all of a sudden Abdul Thero's available in the second round. Booyah. I never wanted Han Young at 17. I just wanted you to think that so you would shake the draft up and do something stupid like this. It doesn't always pay to call the bluff when the player isn't as valuable as anything more than a second round pick. If someone's going to call their bluff on a player, let them go. But this is what happens when people say they fall in love with stuff. We assessed this player for 2 years. We weren't going to let him go. He's our guy. Yeah, but he's a second round, middle of the second round kind of guy. So if someone's telling you they're going to take him in the first round at 17th overall, then they're idiots. You should let them do it. But if you believe he's going to be some super duper star and you can't miss on him, then you're going to do some stupid stuff like what Portland did. It's just not, it's not how you balance your books, man. And this is what we need to start talking more about, I think. It's just getting GMs in place that are not only people good for putting basketball teams together as it pertains to what fits and finding people that have certain attributes that they absolutely love and they're willing to put their whole career on this guy being a good player. That's not your only responsibility. Your other aspect of your responsibility is to make sure you get the stuff right with the numbers, make sure you get the stuff right with the value of the stuff that you're getting. And if you are absolutely clueless about that and you're stupid enough to die on the heel of a second round pick that you think is going to be Jokic, you're probably not right for the job, because there are more savvy ways of getting that Jokic Chinese guy that's supposed to be in the second round than to waste a 16 overall damn pick on him. You got to find a more savvy way of getting him. You got to be a bit more balanced in your patience as to how you're going to acquire him and when. Because if you get him the way you want to get him, you're bringing him to a situation where his value is going to plummet. And that's exactly what's happening. You send him to a log jam, he ain't going to play the first year. You could have gotten him for 3 times less than what you just paid for, if you just waited a half a season or a year for him to go somewhere and not play there. They get a little frustrated with him and move on from him. And the likelihood that happens with a player in his range is high because he's a second-round guy. Not to mention that it's going to cost you more to pay him because you got to give him guaranteed money if he's a first-round guy. You do better letting him fall to the second round off the strength of that. It's just like, this is what I'm talking about. People don't know the first thing about that aspect of what it is that their responsibilities are. And they end up jumbling up this stuff that really, really matters as it pertains to having enough to do enough, having the best package to acquire the next thing they're going to fall in love with. You can't just ignore so much value and do all types of just cowboy stuff and think it's harmless. You're going to make decisions that ultimately eat away at your gunpowder, so to speak. You're not going to have it when it's time to do something else. And maybe you think the guy that you in love with is just going to explode to be this great player. And you could take that value that he's going to have and make up for everything because you're going to hit it out the park. But like, look how much has to be at risk. Look how much short-term value you potentially punt forever. Hopefully it recoups, but if it doesn't recoup, it falls flat and it can't be recovered. It's like these things lead up. They connect with one another, and when they do, people look up at a certain point and wonder why they don't have enough to trade for what it is they want, why they keep getting outbidded by other teams that can pay more. It's because you keep giving up all of your value in these little bitty transactions. And these little simple transactions, and you fall in love with a second round pick and daring to take him in the first round, thinking you're a superstar. Or having five first round picks and drafting all the same position, hoping that one of them work. Like, that's terrible. That is so bad for your franchise health. And I tell these owners, they got to start firing people that do stuff like this. You cannot keep these people around. Especially a team like Brooklyn that's had these mistakes that they've been making over the last several years. They get a chance to be pick rich and blow all 5 of their first round picks on the same position. It's like, yo, this is why your team is so bad. The teams that wins Larry O'Brien never do this. Anyway, I'm where I need to be, man. We're going to continue this conversation when I come out. My name is BDF44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.